You ever notice how some people can walk into a room full of strangers and somehow leave with inside jokes, future plans, and a phone full of new contacts, while others can be surrounded by people and still feel completely invisible? Not ignored, not rejected, just unseen. If you've ever struggled to make friends, this isn't a story about what's wrong with you. It's about what's happening inside you, quietly, invisibly, long before the first hello ever leaves your mouth. Because here's the uncomfortable truth most people never talk about. Struggling to make friends is rarely about social skills. It's about psychology. And more specifically, it's about the invisible rules your mind learned early on. Rules you never consciously agreed to, but have been following ever since. And once you see those rules, you can't unsee them. Most people assume that friendship is built in conversations, shared interests, similar humor, being good with people. But that's the surface layer. Underneath it, something much deeper is at play. Something that shapes how safe you feel around others, how much of yourself you allow to show, and whether connection feels natural or exhausting. Here's something research has quietly confirmed over and over again. Humans don't bond through words first. They bond through emotional safety. And emotional safety isn't created by what you say. It's created by what your nervous system believes. People who struggle to make friends often carry a nervous system that's constantly scanning for risk. Not dramatic danger, not obvious threats, but subtle social risks. Tone shifts, facial expressions, pauses in conversation, silence. Their mind asks questions automatically, without permission. Did I say too much? Did I say too little? Was that awkward? Do they actually want me here? And while that inner dialogue is running, connection becomes almost impossible, because attention is split. Part of you is trying to connect. The other part is busy protecting you. This is where the story really begins. Many people who struggle socially grew up learning, sometimes very early, that being fully themselves had consequences. Maybe not loud consequences. Sometimes it was subtle. A raised eyebrow, a sigh, being talked over, being laughed at, not maliciously, but just enough to sting. So the brain adapted. It learned to observe before participating, to analyze before expressing, to stay one step behind the moment. This adaptation is intelligent, it's protective, but it comes at a cost, because friendships are built in real time, not after careful analysis. Psychologists call this hypervigilance, a state where the mind is constantly alert to social cues. On the outside, it looks like shyness or introversion. On the inside, it feels like being on stage without a script. And here's the part almost no one tells you. The more intelligent and self-aware someone is, the more likely they are to struggle socially. Why? Because awareness without safety turns into self-monitoring, and self-monitoring kills spontaneity. Think about the people you feel most comfortable around. Notice how little you're thinking when you're with them. That's not an accident, that's safety. Now here's the quiet paradox. People who struggle to make friends often deeply value connection, sometimes more than anyone else in the room. They notice details others miss. They remember small things. They care deeply. But because they care so much, they're afraid to get it wrong. And fear doesn't make you distant, it makes you invisible. Another pattern shows up again and again. People who struggle socially often learned early on to be low maintenance, not to ask for too much, not to need too much, not to take up too much space. They became excellent listeners, observers, supporters. But friendship doesn't grow in silence. It grows in mutual presence. And when you're always the one holding space, but never taking it, people don't reject you. They simply don't fully see you. There's a psychological concept called self-concept clarity. It refers to how clearly and confidently someone understands who they are. People with low self-concept clarity aren't unsure because they lack personality. They're unsure because they learn to adjust themselves to environments instead of anchoring to an internal sense of self. So in social situations, they unconsciously ask, who should I be here? And that question, even when unspoken, creates distance, because connection requires a self to connect to. This is where things get uncomfortable. A lot of people who struggle to make friends aren't actually afraid of rejection. They're afraid of being known and then losing connection. Because losing someone after they truly see you feels far more painful than never being fully seen at all. So the mind chooses safety over intimacy. It chooses control over vulnerability. It chooses observation over participation. And slowly, invisibly, loneliness forms, not from lack of people, but from lack of exposure. What makes this even more complex is that modern social culture rewards surface-level confidence, quick humor, loud energy, instant likability. But those are expressions, not foundations. Deep friendships don't start with charisma. They start with resonance. And resonance requires emotional presence. Here's something fascinating. Studies on social bonding show that people don't remember conversations nearly as much as they remember how they felt during them. That means you can say very little and still leave a lasting impression if your presence feels grounded and real. But when you're constantly editing yourself, your presence becomes fragmented, not fake, just diluted, and people sense that even if they can't explain it. Now let's talk about something rarely acknowledged: social exhaustion. Many people who struggle to make friends aren't antisocial. They're overstimulated. Their brain processes social environments deeply. Every interaction feels layered. Every moment carries meaning. So socializing drains them faster, not because they dislike people, but because they're mentally sprinting while others are walking. Over time, this creates a belief: I'm just not built for friendships. But that belief isn't accurate. A more honest one would be, I learned to survive socially, not relax socially. And survival is loud inside the mind. Relaxation is quiet. Another overlooked factor is timing. Friendships don't form when you're trying to be interesting. They form when you allow yourself to be unfiltered enough to be felt. And that requires patience with awkwardness. People who struggle socially often want to skip the awkward phase. They want connection without discomfort. But awkwardness is not failure. It's the doorway. Every close friendship you admire started with uncertainty, with missteps, with moments that could have gone either way. The difference is that some people don't interpret awkwardness as danger. They interpret it as neutral. And that interpretation changes everything. Here's a subtle truth. Your interpretation of social moments shapes your social reality more than the moments themselves. Two people can experience the same silence. One thinks, that was a pause. The other thinks, I ruined it. And over time, those interpretations compound. One person keeps showing up. The other slowly withdraws. What's heartbreaking is that many people who struggle to make friends are emotionally intelligent, reflective, and deeply empathetic. But those strengths turn inward instead of outward. They analyze themselves instead of expressing themselves. And expression, imperfect, unpolished expression, is the bridge to connection. There's a reason why vulnerability research consistently shows that people bond faster when they share small, honest truths. Not dramatic confessions, simple realities. I get nervous in groups. I'm not great at small talk. I overthink sometimes. Those admissions don't push people away. They invite them closer. But making those admissions requires one thing: trust that you're allowed to exist as you are, without performing. And that trust is often the missing piece. So if you've ever felt like friendships happen to everyone else effortlessly while you're stuck on the outside, understand this. It's not because you're broken. It's because you learn to be careful in a world that rewards openness. At some point, most people who struggle to make friends reach a quiet conclusion they rarely say out loud. This is just who I am. Not in a dramatic way, not with anger, but with resignation. Like a door slowly closing, not slammed shut. What's dangerous about that belief isn't that it feels sad. It's that it feels logical. Because when you've tried and still felt unseen, your brain looks for patterns. And the easiest pattern to accept is that connection is something other people are naturally better at. But psychology tells a different story. What looks like personality is often pattern. What feels permanent is often learned. And what seems like fate is frequently habit, reinforced quietly over time. One of the most misunderstood aspects of social difficulty is this. The problem usually isn't a lack of desire for connection. It's a lack of permission. Permission to speak before you're ready. Permission to be slightly awkward. Permission to exist without being impressive. Many people who struggle socially hold themselves to an invisible standard they would never impose on anyone else. They believe they must be interesting, calm, clever, and likable before they are allowed to belong. That belief didn't appear randomly. It often comes from environments where approval felt conditional, where attention had to be earned, where being quiet was praised more than being expressive, where emotional needs were minimized, even subtly. So the mind adapts by becoming self-sufficient, observant, independent, strong. But connection doesn't form through strength alone. It forms through permeability. There's a psychological concept called emotional gating. It refers to how much of your internal world you allow others to access. People who struggle to make friends often have very tight gates, not because they're secretive, but because openness once felt unsafe or unrewarded. So they share selectively, carefully, strategically. And while that protects them from discomfort, it also prevents resonance, because people don't bond with perfection, they bond with presence. Another quiet pattern appears in how socially struggling individuals interpret effort. If a friendship doesn't flow easily, they assume it's failing. But most meaningful relationships don't begin smoothly. They stabilize through repetition, not instant chemistry. Research on social bonding consistently shows that proximity and frequency matter more than compatibility. In simple terms, people become friends because they keep seeing each other, not because they immediately click. But if you believe every interaction is a test you're failing, you won't stay long enough for familiarity to do its work. This creates a loop. You feel unsure, you withdraw early. The bond doesn't form, your belief is reinforced, and the loop tightens. There's also the issue of self-silencing. Many people who struggle socially don't think their thoughts are interesting enough to share. They wait for something worth saying. But conversation doesn't work like that. It's not a performance, it's a rhythm. Pauses, half-formed ideas, small reactions. These are not filler. They are signals of presence. When you silence yourself, you remove your rhythm from the interaction. And without rhythm, connection can't synchronize. One of the most counterintuitive findings in social psychology is this. People tend to like those who allow themselves to be slightly flawed. Minor imperfections increase relatability. They signal humanity. But if you're always polished, always agreeable, always measured, people may respect you without ever feeling close to you. Closeness requires texture. Another factor that rarely gets discussed is grief. Many people who struggle to make friends are carrying unprocessed grief, not always for people, but for versions of connection they never had. The childhood friendships that never formed, the group they never felt part of, the ease they watched others experience. That grief sits quietly, and when new social opportunities appear, it whispers, "You've been here before." So the body braces. This is why logic alone doesn't solve social difficulty. You can understand everything intellectually and still feel frozen emotionally, because the nervous system doesn't respond to insight, it responds to experience, and experience changes slowly. One of the most transformative shifts happens when someone stops asking, "Do they like me?" and starts asking, "Do I feel present right now?" Presence grounds the body. It redirects attention outward instead of inward. It softens self-monitoring. And interestingly, presence is felt by others almost immediately, not as confidence, but as calm authenticity. People are drawn to those who seem at home in themselves, even imperfectly. Another important distinction, struggling to make friends does not mean struggling to connect. Many socially reserved people connect deeply, just not widely. They thrive in one-on-one environments, in slow conversations, in shared silence. But modern social norms often favor volume over depth, so people internalize the wrong metric. They measure themselves by how many connections they have, not how meaningful they are. And that comparison erodes self-trust. Here's something quietly hopeful. The same sensitivity that makes social environments overwhelming also makes deep friendships extraordinarily rich once safety is established. People who struggle socially often become exceptional friends, loyal, attuned, emotionally available, but only after they stop trying to earn belonging and start allowing it. This usually begins with small risks, saying one honest thing instead of the right thing, staying 5 minutes longer than feels comfortable, letting silence exist without filling it. These moments feel insignificant, but they rewire the brain's association with social exposure. Safety isn't built through avoidance, it's built through survivable discomfort, not overwhelming exposure, gentle stretching, and slowly something shifts. The body learns that nothing bad happens when you speak imperfectly. The mind learns that connection doesn't disappear when you're real. The belief loosens. One of the most profound realizations people report is this: friendships don't require you to be different. They require you to be consistent. Showing up as yourself, again and again, allows others to relax around you. And relaxation is contagious. If you're someone who has struggled to make friends, understand this deeply. You are not behind. You are not deficient. You are not missing something everyone else has. You learn to be careful, and careful kept you safe. But safety and isolation often look similar. The work now is not to become louder, funnier, or more outgoing. The work is to become more permissive with yourself, to let yourself be seen before you feel ready. Because readiness doesn't precede connection. Connection creates readiness, and one day, often without realizing it, you'll notice something subtle. Conversations feel less effortful. Silences feel less threatening. You stop rehearsing your exit, and you realize that friendship didn't suddenly become easy. You simply stop fighting yourself inside it, and that, quietly, gently, changes everything.